Tonight, why the European Parliament's Agricultural Committee wants to ban words like burger, sausage, cheese, and yogurt to describe plant-based products. A final vote on this issue will take place in the week of the 19th, and to celebrate this truly revolutionary step towards clear food labeling, I have with me this evening Eric Odieux, a French member of the European Parliament. My name is James Velez-Mitchell, and you are watching Fig News. So Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Now tell me, why this ban?
So the answer to this question is actually pretty obvious if you ask me. And basically it's because as a MEP, I always do what's best for the people. And this ban is no exception. So essentially we do it to avoid this big problem called CC, which stands for consumer confusion.
That's incredible. And I love how you're always looking out for people. Now tell me, how and why did this whole thing start?
So, funny story actually. It started about a year ago, and I was on a walk on this sunny Saturday afternoon, and this lady walked up to me, and she looked like she was shaking. So I asked her, "Are you okay?" And without saying a word, she just handed me this pack of plant burgers. And she asked me, "Do you know by any chance if there are dead animals in these patties?" So I said, "Okay, I help you." I take the pack, I look at it, I turn it around, I read the whole packaging, every word, at least twice actually, but I just couldn't figure out if there were any animals in those patties. I actually even called the company, and the person I got a hold of when I asked them the question, they just said, je sais pas, hein? Which in English roughly translates to, I have no clue. At that point, the lady, believe me, she broke down in tears. And I myself, I still have nightmares about this episode to this day. It's actually so bad. Sometimes I think to myself, oh, maybe I made this whole thing up.
That sounds incredibly confusing, and it's definitely a situation I would never want to find myself in. So, what happened next?
So that was just the beginning, because after that, I quickly discovered it's not just her, but actually about 100% of the population suffers of this problem. My research team ran test after test after test after test after test, and each time they concluded that this problem of not clearly knowing which foods are plant-based is actually so frustrating to people. It is the number one cause of depression, divorce, and diarrhea. It's actually, you could call it a triple D problem. And me, myself, believe it or not, I was buying soy chicken without realizing it since 2014.
And you didn't even realize it!
Yes, the problem is that they taste exactly the same. But I talked to some of my friends, and a lot of people are in this situation. We just want an animal to be killed for our food, okay, very simple request, but we are tricked again and again in buying the plant-based foods instead.
Oh, that sounds awful. Now tell us, what is the name of this soy chicken you've been accidentally buying just so we can all actively avoid it in the future?
Very good question. So they are called exactly the soy vegan chicken strips by a company called Meatless Company. And the chicken actually is spelled with an apostrophe instead of E.
Wow, thank you. Now, after making those groundbreaking discoveries, Eric started a grassroots activist group called Selfless Humans Impede Tragedy in order to protest this misleading and unfair plant-based food labels. Coming up, exclusive footage of one of their weekly protests captured here at Fig News.
Discs, nuts, burgers,
Selfless Humans Impede Tragedy believes that just as the word table is reserved for tables made out of wood, and the word t-shirt is reserved for garments made out of cotton, words like burger and sausage should be reserved for foods made out of animal parts.
So nowadays, people are actually buying more and more plant-based foods. And you see, there are some people out there, they think, oh, maybe it's because people care about animals, the environment, something like that. But actually, the only logical and scientific explanation to this phenomenon is that people are being misled by these plant-based labels that are frankly very confusing, that people cannot understand. You see, if we are going to live in a just society, people need to be empowered to make informed decisions about what goes inside their body.
So, what do you think the solution is then?
It's very simple actually, so let me show you. You look at this, and what does this look like to you?
Well, I'd personally say that the closest thing to that, at least visually, is a disc.
Yes, and this one, for example, what does this one look like to you?
I mean, that one reminds me of a tube I have under my kitchen sink.
So, the solution should be pretty simple and straightforward.
Right. We should just name the veggie burgers veggie discs and the veggie sausages veggie tubes. However, as this movement has been taking off, there has also been some pushback. Specifically, environmental and animal rights groups say there is, quote, no evidence to suggest that the current labeling of plant-based food products is causing any confusion. On this, here is a pre-recorded clip from animal activist Peace by Vajan joining us from his home.
Thank you, Joe. So I actually think it's a little bit hypocritical because, you know, if we're going to label things clearly, then why not, for example, call bacon part of a dead pig, or maybe a burger patty could be a ground up cow.
Seems like we're having some technical difficulties with the clip there. Anyways, moving on. Eric, back to you. What do you have to say about this pushback?
Well, these activists clearly have no idea what they're talking about, okay? Actually, I suspect they're a little bit, cuckoo in the head. And basically, that would be a terrible idea. And here's why. So people in general, like me, for example, I just don't want to think about the animals who are killed for my food. And emphasizing that would actually make it so much harder to dissociate. I mean, can you imagine if every time you eat animal products, you have to watch a video of an animal being killed? I mean, for us, that would be a terrible blow to our profits. And that is why we always try to name our foods with appealing names so people can eat them without feeling guilty.
I see, that makes perfect sense. Now, I have to ask you because I heard you say our foods. Does that mean that you are connected to the meat industry, or actually, is the meat industry involved with this in any sort of way?
Sorry, I can't hear you.
You're positive you can't hear me? It's cutting out.
I am sure you are cutting out. Yes, I cannot hear you. You are cutting out. Maybe I go now. I think. Yeah, maybe I go.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you so much to Eric for joining us tonight and giving us those priceless insights. Now, to our beautiful viewers, I do want to warn you that there is an organization out there called Pro-Veg International, and they have started a Stop the Veggie Burger Ban petition, maintaining that not only are consumers not confused by the current way that plant-based foods are labeled, they say that these restrictions would be, quote, in direct opposition to the European Union's stated objectives to create more sustainable and healthier food systems. But of course, like everything that these extreme groups do, this petition is not labeled properly, and if you're not careful, you might be tricked into signing it without your consent, just like I was this very morning. I put a link to the petition down below so you can check it out. But whatever you do, make sure you do not sign it. I have been James Velez Mitchell, and thank you for tuning in to Fig News. Suggest that the current labeling of plant-based products is causing any confusion. I forgot the rest.